Hey guys, it's Matt. It was recommended to me that I read the book The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis, which I did. It's a very, very strange book. I will describe it a bit, but without a doubt, the most interesting part of the book is the preface. Now, this book is a short book. What is it, 120, 130 pages? And it's a small little paperback. And the preface, if this was a full-size hardback, would barely be a page and a half. So I'm going to read the preface, the entire book, which is fiction, about a bus that supposedly goes from hell, which really is, I think, depicted as this world, to a strange spiritual world that C.S. Lewis is trying to pass off as heaven. It's very odd. I'll talk about it a bit, but the entire theme or moral that he's trying to get across is encapsulated in the preface. I'm going to read it, just a page and a half, but it's very similar to a lot of the things we look at closely. And of course, when I started doing my research related to certain things here, C.S. Lewis, here comes the 33, here comes the 33, here comes the 30. It's just, look, who is C.S. Lewis is just one of these figures like H.G. Wells and all the rest. Who knows how much they knew or initiated. I can't stand that word anymore. I've heard that dumb word so many times. Who knows exactly what they knew about how they were serving the system? I don't think it matters whether they knew every bit or they were just used as a conduit and somebody said, H.G. Wells, you're going to write about this. You're going to write about satellites and toasters. Well, why? Just do what we say and don't ask questions. I don't think it matters because what we can pull out of it, if we eliminate the crap and read between the lines, is the same. So who cares what a puppet like C.S. Lewis really knew? Matt, you're going to read the preface to a C.S. Lewis book as the basis of your video? I'm sitting here in the driver's center waiting for my goddamn number to be called, and I'm not even going to want to sit through this, and I'm desperate for anything to It's worth our time, trust me. I'm typically decent at putting forth video topics that y'all find interesting. So, yeah, I know it sounds boring as all hell. Even if you're in the damn driver's center, you want to turn the station. But stick with me on this one. Beginning to read in just a moment. Guys, I'll read for a while. Usually I stop after every sentence. It's annoying to many people. I'll read for a bit. If you're not understanding what C.S. Lewis is saying while I'm reading it, don't worry about it. I didn't understand it the first time I read it either. And it's long-winded, and these guys bloviate. All of the first part here could be said in one sentence. Don't worry if you don't get everything as I'm reading it. We'll go back and make sure none of the key points are missed. Blake, referencing here William Blake, wrote The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. That goes back to the 1700s. If I have written of their divorce, again, this book is called The Great Divorce. If I have written of the divorce of heaven and hell, this is not because I think myself a fit antagonist for so great a genius, Blake, nor even because I feel at all sure that I know what he meant. But in some sense or another, the attempt to make the marriage between heaven and hell is perennial. The attempt is based on the belief that reality never presents us with an absolutely unavoidable either-or, that, granted skill and patience, and above all time enough, some way of embracing both alternatives can always be found. Some way of embracing heaven and hell at the same time can always be found. That mere development or adjustment or refinement will somehow turn evil into good without our being called on for a final and total rejection of anything we should like to retain. This belief, I take, is a disastrous error. You cannot take all luggage with you. Okay. This belief I take to be a disastrous error. What is this guy saying? And the key to that in this first section, which will be clarified further as I continue to read, is this. The attempt to merge heaven and hell is based on the belief that reality never presents us with an absolutely unavoidable either-or. He's saying that, you can't totally get rid of the hell and we have to bring it along. No. He's basically saying every bit of what you consider hell has to be left behind for whatever you need to do in life. That he would hate what I've said many times in videos, that we don't have to be perfect here. It's still my belief. I don't know how. This is very similar to what Chiron's Last has been presenting in the last few videos, where I'm going to interpret. I think after listening to his many hours of his videos, I'm allowed to interpret what he's saying the best that I can. Saying you cannot take a piece, you cannot still be in love with a piece of this world, as Chiron Last would likely say. All of it has to be shed. And then I've kind of suggested back a few times, I've never made a video directly back to Chiron's Last. I said, well, who's the judge of if we've shed enough or if we've completely detached from this world? But as I was reading this, I'm like, yeah, that's what Chiron Last says. And he's saying there is no middle ground here, C.S. Lewis is saying. You embrace even a tiny bit of hell, then the whole thing is infected. It just doesn't work. So let me continue reading, and it'll make more sense. You cannot take all luggage with you on all journeys. On one journey, even your right hand and your right eye oh no. On one journey, even your right hand and your right eye may be among the things you have to leave behind. We'll talk about this in a second, guys. We are not living in a world where all roads are radii of a circle, and where all, if followed long enough, will therefore draw gradually nearer and finally meet at the center. Rather, we live in a world where every road, after a few miles, forks into two, and each of those into two again. And each fork, you must make a decision. Even on the biological level, life is not like a river, but like a tree. It does not move towards unity, but away from it, and the creatures grow further apart as they increase in perfection. Good, as it ripens, becomes continually more different, not only from evil, but from other good. All right, let's try to summarize that mess. Okay, first thing to understand, if you're not getting this as I'm reading it, and few of you will be. I didn't understand a damn bit of it the first time I read it. So reading it to you here without even seeing the words, plus you're driving a forklift. That's damn hard. He's just saying the same thing over and over. Where you need to be, where you need to go, your spiritual journey after death, getting to heaven, whatever your religious beliefs are, you cannot still try to hold on one tiny little sliver of what you would consider to be hell, or you will not be able to get there. Just one little rice grain that's considered hell, he said that one little rice grain, you got to get rid of all of it. Okay, and basically here with the example about the circle, think of a Trivial Pursuit game. You know, even if you're horrible at answering the questions, you can't go anywhere on the board. You just go round and round and round. It's all a Trivial Pursuit, which is a metaphor for life. And being good at answering trivia questions. Eventually, even the dumbest of the dumb are going to, after maybe years, will find their way into the center. He's saying, this life is more like a tree branch. As you go out, more branches, decisions make another branch, another split off. And he's basically saying, if you continue to carry a little bit of hell with you for each branch and split off, it's kind of like compounded. You can never get rid of it then, because it keeps branching off and everything gets compounded, the hell that you're carrying. Matt, if he's created some sort of gigantic analogy in the book that follows about those spirits, newly dead souls and spirits die, they get on a bus, leave behind the earth. He represents that as hell into some spiritual realm. I'll talk more about it later. And here in the preface, he's saying, to really get where you need to go, you can't be carrying even a single tic-tac of hell. Well, it would be nice, Matt, that he must define hell. What does that mean? Is this tic-tac in my pocket hell or not? Oh, he doesn't go there at all. Doesn't go there at all. Is hell, what is that? Is it this Pat Benatar CD, Hell is for Children? Is it an addiction you can't drop? And what does that mean? C.S. Lewis, if you're going to tell us you can't move forward in the spiritual realm while carrying one bit of hell, well, can you give us some examples which are alluded to in the fiction book? But he doesn't say a damn thing about it. C.S. Lewis, I wouldn't give a squirt of piss for your ass right now. But I appreciate the big thinking in the preface. Sorry if you're rolling around in your grave. You could define it a little bit better. And somebody's screaming at me, throwing rubber duckies. Matt, it's a generality on purpose. Each individual has to understand what hell is to themselves, their own journey, and leave it behind. Okay, I hear you. But how about some goddamn examples, C.S. Lewis? Just say hell, and I'm supposed to know what that means. Give me 2 bags of rice, a 6-pack of beer, and hell. What does that mean? The interesting phrase of what I just read before I continue to read, saying that life, reality, does not move towards unity, but away from it, and the creatures grow further apart as they increase in perfection. Good, as it ripens, becomes continuously more different, not only from evil, but from other good. Now, this is basically the second law of thermodynamics. Everything moves towards entropy, which is similar to as you go down the tree branch, it branches. Decisions, it branches, it branches. But when I read the bottom here, good as it ripens becomes continuously more different, not only from evil, but from other good. This is what we're experiencing right now, where maybe 15 years ago, we maybe would consider ourselves on the same branch, going down the branch as it's branching off with QAnon people or certain people in the conservative movement. But as we branch off, good as it ripens becomes continuously more different, not only from evil, but from other good. So we see, okay, the QAnon people, they're not my enemy because they see all the problems with government. They see it big bloated Jabba the Hutt. But they don't see the main things that we do. But we have the same gripes and complaints, except how delusional and misguided they are in terms of what's causing it and what the fix is. So it's very apt what's being said here. We're becoming increasingly more different, not only from evil, but from other good. And as we go down the branches and we split and we split and we split, the QAnon people in no way anymore we would consider our brethren in truth, which we may have done that sort of mindset 10 years ago, if that made any sense. Continuing to read, we're about halfway done. I do not think that all who choose wrong roads perish, but their rescue consists in being put back on the right road. A sum, when you're adding something up, a sum can be put right, but only by going back till you find the error and working it afresh from that point on, never by simply going on. Evil can be undone, but it cannot develop or morph into good. I just added that. Time does not heal it. The spell must be unwound bit by bit with backward mutters of deserving power, or else not. It is still either or. If we insist on keeping hell, or even earth, we shall not see heaven. If we accept heaven, we shall not be able to retain even the smallest and most intimate souvenirs of hell. Let me pause there. This, using the sum or the addition, very much relates to the tree branch example earlier. If you have a test in 5th grade where your teacher gives you 20 numbers to add 16 plus 20 plus 5 plus 1 plus 5, blah, 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 whatever, you make a mistake, anywhere along the line, it's going to be carried forward. There's no way. You have to, he's saying you've got to back up and find the mistake before you can go forward. You've got to back up to the point where maybe you took that hell into your life, and then you've got to shed it and then go back. Where most people, he's saying, make from the first part, the disastrous mistake of, I know I'm carrying a little bit of hell, and he doesn't define what that is again. I cheat on my wife, I have these addictions, I do this, but it's okay, like what Matt says, we don't have to be perfect. I still believe that. I don't care what C.S. Lewis says in this preface. I don't think we have to be perfect here. How could we be perfect in an imperfect system with an imperfect body? Come on. I don't want to get gross again, but something we do every day reminds us that there ain't no perfection here, dude. The armpit's always going to smell a bit. So I don't know what you're talking about, C.S. Lewis drop. It's maybe we don't have to be perfect, but I don't know. We'll talk about that more later. But it's just another way of seeing your problem, at least in this summation, will be in carrying forth the hell in the idea of adding numbers. It just gets carried forward. There's no way to get rid of it if you keep adding the numbers. And for the last part, It's just two ways of saying the same thing. The easier way, we'll just look at this first sentence. If we insist on keeping hell or even earth, we shall not see heaven. If we insist on keeping hell or even earth, of course, he's equating hell to earth, we shall not see heaven. Again, takes me back to the last few videos from Chiron's last. He's saying, you got to shed everything of this world, no matter what it means. I mean, Chiron's last is hardcore on this. So, well, I need to keep this job to continue to pay my mortgage. He's like, that ain't good enough then. You need to shed all of it. And then I would ask back to him, well, who's the judge of if enough has been done? Is it metaphysical? I mean, do you judge yourself? He needs to, if you're going to be so hardcore that all of it needs to be left behind, well, what's the standards? How do you know if you've done enough? I don't expect him to have the answers, but he hasn't even addressed that. Maybe he will in the future. Continuing to read the very last section. I believe, to be sure, that any man who reaches heaven will find that what he abandoned, even in plucking out his right eye, oh no, here it is again. We'll address this, guys. What he has abandoned, even plucking out his right eye, has not been lost. That the kernel of what he was really seeking, even in his most depraved wishes, will be there beyond expectation, waiting for him in the, quote, high countries. In that sense, it will be true for those who have completed the journey, and for no others, to say that good is everything and heaven everywhere. But we, at this end of the road, must not try to anticipate that retrospective vision. If we do, we are likely to embrace the false and disastrous converse and fancy that everything is good and everywhere is heaven. Well, let's stop there. There's one little tiny section left to go. We'll address all this right eye business a little bit later. But he's basically saying, why not give it all up? Why not shed it? Okay, maybe you're addicted to this or you like this, but don't try to take it with you. Give it all up, because when you use the giving it or the process of giving it all up to find heaven, then he's saying it all comes back to you. I don't think he's saying the hell comes back to you, but whatever joy you found in trying to hold on to it will come back to you 1,000 times more. So the right eye thing, let's forget let's forget the esoteric, occult, Freemasonry, secret society stuff for now, and just what he's saying here literally. So let's just assume he could say you could cut off your nose, or if you have to cut out your right eye, or cut off your nose, or cut off a finger to, in your vision, leave behind hell. When you finally get to your heaven, you're not going to be without a nose or without an eye or without a finger. It will all come back to you. Leave it all behind. This is very similar or exactly the same as the line in the famous it's not famous to me, it is, Francis Dunnery song I've mentioned a few times over the years. The only thing you get to keep is what you give away. And it's a pretty small-time artist I've seen here in the Philadelphia area, Francis Dunnery. If you ever find this song online, find the live version with just the slow guitar, not the dance version. Without a doubt, the live, slower, guitar-only version. The only thing you get to keep is what you give away. I went and found the link from the live album Hometown. I'll leave a link if you want to hear the song. It really is a good song below. But C.S. Lewis goes farther than that line from the Francis Dunnery song, the only thing you get to keep is what you give away. He's saying, C.S. Lewis basically saying, if you don't give it all away, if you don't give it all away, you're not going to get, this bus is not going to get ultimately where it needs to go after death. And again, this hell that he speaks of vaguely, we don't really know exactly what this means, and we should also talk about later, is he just talking about the afterlife or creating like heaven here? Well, that's worth going a little bit later, I guess. I mean, it's clear from the book is about the afterlife and souls and ghosts traveling on a bus, so it seems clear that he's talking about the afterlife, but we'll talk about it. Again, he's saying it can't be converted. This little bit of hell I have in my pocket here, we're going to convert it. We're going to bring it along. We'll make it right. It doesn't convert. You've already taken the wrong path. or you're on the wrong branch of the tree as it's branched out, if you're trying to carry the hell along with you like a little Muppet in your pocket. It can't be converted. It will the Muppet, the animal, will always raid your refrigerator and clean you out. You've got to get rid of that damn thing, or just put it down the gutter or something. The animal from the Muppets, leave it behind, is what C.S. Lewis would say. And then even so, when you've made a mistake summing a bunch of numbers, you then need to back up. You can't just throw the damn Muppet out of your pocket. Oh, I've now left the hell behind. He's basically saying, well, how many branches have you gone on to with the hell in your pocket? You almost have to back up. That's what he's saying in his example. Back up and then proceed again. I mean, my goodness, C.S. Lewis, you don't give us the opportunity for any mistakes here. Talk about having to be perfect. This is the last very small section, but probably the most confusing. But what, you ask, of earth? Earth, I think, will not be found by anyone to be in the end a very distinct place. I think earth, if chosen instead of heaven, will turn out to have been all along only a region in hell. And earth, if put second to heaven, to have been from the beginning a part of heaven itself. What the hell? Talk about confusing. Come on, C.S. Lewis. If you're going to write to be understood, my man. That's the first thing they should have taught you. About 10% of very good or great writers just write to please themselves, like Narcissus staring in the pond at himself. I can't tell you how many things over the years, brilliant people, there's no doubt, have sent me things. And I can't, it's so highbrow, like I would need to do several years at Oxford to understand it. And I'm no dummy. I just send it back to them. I'm like, send me something I can understand. I mean, I'm not grading anybody here. This isn't getting anybody points. Just send it back at 5th level so I can understand the basic points. Don't need, it doesn't have to win the Thesaurus Award. In terms of what I just read, in the simplest sense, he's basically saying, if you continue to latch on to things, very similar things we have said, if you latch on to the things of earth, to the things of this culture, society, reality, you're latching on to hell. He's kind of not differentiating between the things of earth, which we'll call the things of modern culture, society, etc., and hell itself. So, again, the only thing you get to keep is what you give away. You got to let it all go. If you hold on to earth, well, I would want to ask C.S. Lewis, well, what about, I don't know, an appreciation for beautiful animals and sylvan creatures and walking? I mean, I don't, what do you mean by earth? Is it just the culture and society that sits on top of the game board? What if you're a tree hugger? Is that trying to hold on to earth, and is that trying to hold on to hell? To me, I differentiate between the basic game board here in nature and the hell that the creeps are trying to lay down on it. I see, one is like a hijack, one is like the basic game board. I see them as two different things. He may be right in the end. If you try to hold on to any bit of this place, it's like or no different than trying to hold on to hell. It's a little extreme, if you ask me. If there's a little cardinal outside with a broken wing and I take it in and I learn to love it, I don't think I'm holding on to hell. I'm not trying to take it with me in my coffin on the day of my death. I mean, come on, C.S. Lewis. Where's the wiggle room here? Maybe, Matt, that's the point. These puppets of the system, they'll give you no wiggle room. So you just go into your death thinking you're screwed and doomed, and that's the subtle message. You just got it, Matt. Maybe. I don't trust this guy as far as I could throw his coffin. Before we return to the central theme of the preface, let me do a few sidebars just for the heck of it. I don't know where to cover this, so I might as well cover this now. First off, I should have mentioned, this guy wrote, Narnia, whatever it is, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and that kind of sci-fi stuff. Narnia. The movies are very average, but the books are probably good. I like some fantasy books. I haven't read those sorts of things in a while. But here's what I wanted to talk about. Somehow that I never read Narnia. I never read any of his stuff other than this. I never read none of it. But at least from this, they're talking about I don't see any Christianity coming through in this book, guys. And here's a quote on the back. Where would the Christian thinker be without Lewis? He is pivotal. This who wrote this? Jen Carran, author of the best-selling series The Mitford Years, the Wonder Years. But Jan Carran, this is not a Christian book. I don't know where people are getting this. Where does it say something else about? Oh, C.S. Lewis is the ideal persuader for the half-convinced, for the good man who would like to be a Christian but finds his intellect getting in the way. Oh, the geniuses at the New York Times Book Review. Somehow they're interpreting this book, The Great Divorce, the divorce of heaven and hell, it's just called The Great Divorce, as a Christian book. Okay, the souls get on this bus. They're taken to this weird-ass place. I'm not even going to talk about the fiction of the back 100 and some pages. The souls get out. These spirit guides are there. All this strange stuff takes place. The Lord is mentioned a few times. I don't know if Jesus is even mentioned. That God or the Lord is mentioned on a few pages in passing. This is not a Christian book. I mean, I have no idea where people are getting this. In no way is this a Christian book. Just because a bus gets off in heaven, I don't know where, maybe his other books are more clear in this regard. It's more likely blasphemous from a Christian perspective. Well, yeah, Matt, that's why the New York Times Book Review, do you think the New York Times Book Review would be giving Christians real good advice as to where they should be seeking direction from, like C.S. Lewis? I hear you. That's a good point. So these puppets of the system, they're not out to help any facet of our groups, no matter what camp you're in, are they? In the past, we've talked about see what the system wants, see what it's putting forth, and if you're not sure, just do the opposite, because it's never looking out for you. You could apply that to the back of this book. C.S. Lewis' signature book. It's a small little thing, The Great Divorce, but look at the reviewers singing all the praise on the back. That first one, John Carran, whoever that is, John Updike. Here's the New Yorker singing praise, the New York Times Book Review, and the Los Angeles Times. So it's just like the company you keep. From what I've experienced and the rules that seem to apply every time I look at something like this, if something is praised by the New Yorker, the New York Times Book Review, and the Los Angeles Times, it couldn't possibly be good for you spiritually. Well, why are we doing this, Matt? Because why are there truth in movies? What did we do in yesterday's video? There's always things that can be pulled out. But you can't take, if something's praised by the New Yorker or New York Times Book Review, you can't take it on its own as being good for anybody. It's going to be filled with deception, of course. There's going to be truth in it. It's the same theme that's carried forth in thousands of different things we've looked at over 10 to 12 to 15 years. So the idea here is to, as usual, to pull out what we can use. But it didn't take glowing reviews from the New Yorker and the New York Times Book Review and the Los Angeles Times and elements on the system on the back. It didn't take that for me to be skeptical of it, because we've learned to be skeptical of any of these system players that are brought to prominence. H.G. Wells or Isaac Asimov, here C.S. Lewis, Orwell, Huxley. If they're brought to the forefront by the Not Nilk system, and the Not Nilk system shines a light on it and says, look how great this is. There could be a lot of truth in it, of course, but we're going to be skeptical. It's probably a ninth inning or last second hijack, something very, very bad in it, or it wouldn't be pushed by the Not Nilk system itself. And if anybody's throwing rubber duckies, there are some exceptions, okay, like the movie Dances with Wolves. Well, I don't know what contractual violation was laid down where they had to make that. I don't know. There are a few things that I have trouble finding how could Hollywood have made this, or how could this certain book exist? But they're rare. For the most part, if C.S. Lewis is put up there next to H.G. Wells and these writers, then it's doing the bidding in some way, doing the bidding of the system themselves. And we could say whether they know about it or not, but then of course you get the first page of the preface talks about covering the right eye and cutting out the right eye, and then of course he ain't doing that he's not doing that by accident. Matt, he could have picked any body part to cut out. Oh sure, well that tells you something about his background. Again, it doesn't mean all of it should be thrown out. A reminder, they carry the nursery rhymes artificially through history. They carry the Humpty Dumptys. It's almost like they have to. I don't know. There's no corruption in Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty, Humpty. There's no corruption. There's a very positive message if you interpret it that way, but there's no possible chance for corruption. Matt, you don't understand what that Humpty Dumpty did to kids. It didn't do anything. There's good things that these creeps seem to have to carry through as well. But I don't know whether C.S. Lewis exactly on that where he stands along that sliding scale. But again, I'm skeptical for many reasons, not just because of the first damn page he's talking about cutting out the right eye. Okay, I read the preface 5 times before this. The back of the book, the fiction part, I only read through once. And I know some people are like, well, Matt, talk a little bit about, or 2 minutes or less, or 3 minutes or less, on the main part of the book, the fiction part. And I'll try to do my best to relate the moral of that to what is being said in the preface, because everything important is being said in the preface. All right, 2 minutes or less. A bunch of souls, spirits, whatever, get on this bus. And it looks like it's leaving behind Earth. And just weird things start to happen. Bickering on the bus, and you get the sense after a few pages, I guess, that these people are dead, but they're acting like they're alive. Petty little disputes on the bus, fights between passengers on the bus, and someone would say, well, they must not know they're dead on the bus. No, it's pretty clear early on they know they're dead. So the main point, or the moral of the back part of the book, the fiction part, as it relates to the preface, these ghosts are called. They're not called spirits. The spirits are in the heaven waiting for them. The more solid ones in the heaven are spirits. The souls, or the ghosts as they're called, arrive this spiritual realm on the bus. Many want to run right back in the bus. They want to go back home immediately. They haven't, as C.S. Lewis would probably say, they never ever dropped the hell. They carry too much with them. They immediately want to go home. And the one ghost or soul that we follow around the heavenly realm. By the way, the heavenly realm is just strange. It's in no way Christian. It's these ghosts. They can't walk on the grass because the grass is like super hard and it pricks their feet. It's just a weird way. There's no synergy whatsoever between these ghosts and this heavenly realm. They can barely get around. It's just weird. Okay, I don't know how to describe it. But this one ghost, to the person we follow around the story, observes how the other people on the bus interact with this heavenly realm. And the one thing they all have in common, as we see through the eyes of the one person who's kind of the main protagonist of the book, is they all are unwilling to give up the characteristics of what they were on Earth. As C.S. Lewis would say in the preface, they are unwilling to drop the hell. They're petty. If one person gets off the bus with another and they work together and then they come across each other in the spirit realm, one soul will say, well, we worked together, Fred, you were never nice to me. I mean, and the soul or the spiritual guides are much more solid than these ghosts. And the spiritual guides are kind of saying, who cares what you're in, like, this is heaven. Like, who cares how this guy treated you? Why don't you just let it go? This is the place where you let it go. And then another, through the eyes of the protagonist, he's wandering around and observed somebody that was married to somebody and is like, you never loved me. And they're just petty. And the spirit guides are always coming in going, leave it, let it go. It doesn't matter if this person wronged you. You're in a whole new reality now. And that's indicative of the first few that want to run back on the bus. They cannot move forward in the spiritual realm because everybody around the protagonist of the book is harboring old petty gripes and complaints, and I don't know what to call it. They just can't let go of the earth. As the preface says, they just are carrying the hell with them. Many want to go back on the bus. They want to go back. So they're also described as ghosts. And it's not clear, but over time you get the sense from these spiritual guides who are solid. When they step on the grass, it's like you stepping on the grass in your backyard. When these ghosts step on the grass, it's like stepping on like rebarb. It hurts. They're for some reason they're ghosts, but the ground is very painful and solid. And the spirits are like saying, well, hey, spend time here. You will become more in tune with this environment, or you will become more solid. It'll get easier to walk on this grass. And all the people, the ghosts just complain. And look, the moral, it's a roundabout way of saying something that could be said in a few sentences that's said in the preface. These people are all carrying their petty little concerns from their life. And in the back 120 some pages, the fiction part, C.S. Lewis makes his point by showing the reader what not to do. So the opposite would be, if this was even in the book, the opposite would be somebody that gets off the bus with their brother, their uncle, their boss who he hated, the ex-wife that stole all the furniture out of the house, and the person would say, those people would start bitching and griping and still act like they're on Earth, and that person would be a winner. Not presented like this in C.S. Lewis, but to show you the opposite, that person would say, wait, this is a whole new start. I'm not going to carry any ill will towards you. I'm not going to remember anything that I did to you or you did to me back on Earth. This is heaven, man. This is a whole new start for all of us. And it's all like water off the back of a duck. That person would be, according to this book or the spiritual guides, a winner. Someone that just left it all behind and maybe might remember hating their ex-girlfriend, who's also was a spirit or soul or ghost on the bus, but in no way caring about any of that because of the wonder and incredible fascination of this new place of which is coming to them after death. Even the environment all these ghosts coming off the bus complain about, with the most notable being, for some reason, these ghosts, the grass is like walking on pieces and shards of metal. It hurts. And the spirit guides come along and say, hey, you're new here. It'll get better. And everybody bitches and complains about the environment. But again, it's not really portrayed in the book, but the one guy that would be a winner would say, oh, okay, I trust you, spiritual guide. I trust you that it hurts for me to walk on the grass now. But if you're saying I will become more in tune with this environment and it gets easier day by day, then that's great news. I'll do what I need to do so it becomes easier because I'm willing to stay here. I don't want to get back on the bus where, again, even the people bitch about their environment. Okay, enough of that. It took way longer than I thought, but it's so bizarre, the back fiction part of the book. There's no way, any other way I could have explained it. Back to a strange line in the preface that really only can be addressed now that I talked about the back part of the book. It says in the preface, I do not think that all who choose the wrong roads perish, but the rescue consists in being put back on the right road. Saying, I don't think people that choose the wrong road perish, but they have to be rescued and put back on the right road. And this is from the preface from C.S. Lewis himself, but this is the theme that's carried forth in the fiction part of the book with the spirits. And the message seems to come forth with the spirit guides regarding the ghosts that just got off the bus. Like, if they just keep doing this, if they keep resorting back to their old ways and their petty concerns of the life on earth, and they just can't give it up, and it's unclear how many chances they get, he basically does say their essence or whatever they were goes to nothing, goes to the abyss. This is Pope Francis's abyss. That's what it says in the back part of the book in so many words. Like, this person's back here again, and they're still bitching about their job, and they keep carrying forth the petty concerns of earth. And, the people, they don't have many more chances to drop this. But it does say in the back part of the book, or at least these spiritual guides, that if there's even a small essence of its true nature still remaining, these spiritual guides will still work to resuscitate, or it can be brought back before it goes in the abyss. It seems similar to what I was presenting on Saturday. In a way, the first conversation after a failed life, the focus of that presentation was the earth was locked down, pulled out of the earth because there was still a light left in them. The person had not fully been converted over to a golem from the perspective of the creatures and the minions of Earth, and it could be resuscitated. Thus, the strange chambers that were set up with the demonic woman. But this is similar. It's saying that, again, it says here, I do not think all who choose the wrong paths or the roads perish, but the rescue consists of being put back on the right road. There's nothing Christian about that statement. Okay, nothing Christian, but the system is intent on convincing people that C.S. Lewis is a Christian writer. Maybe I'm missing something because I haven't read his other works. I doubt it. So I paused and I sat here for a while thinking about something, and I thought, screw it. Like, we want to take this to the highest level, absolute sci-fi strangeness, and people are like, yeah, that's why we come here, Matt. I mean, take it all the way. And I kept thinking about this. Okay, this is going to be as weird as it gets, but for some reason I keep coming back to this as I sat here thinking about this over and over, and there's something that C.S. Lewis is presenting that's resonating with me along these lines. All right, start from scratch. Do you remember when I said I was potentially killed by that tree? People new here going, what the hell? How much time have I wasted over here? Just hear me out. I'm not going to present the story over again because many of you have heard it a few times. It was very strange. Right around 2012, the tree kicked back, whatever. It should have dropped on me. It was held up in some weird way. And I looked up at it being held up. The whole thing's very fuzzy to me. And I thought, what are the chances it could be held up by that small branch? It should have at least come down and broken my leg or something. Anyway, I got up and finished my work. Well, then the world started to get very strange, of course, for a lot of us. I mean, we had been looking at the 7-Eleven job application and other things for years before that, but the world got very weird right around 2012. The Mandela effect didn't hit for most people until 2016. So as it got very, very strange, and I just floated it about 7 years ago, I said, maybe that tree killed me, and you immediately, consciousness continues, and hadn't done a damn thing for what I was intended to do here, put me into a very similar realm, a mimic world, but just one level down that's just bizarro across the board. But your friends are still your friends, your family is still your family, who knows what reality is capable of. So I floated that, and a lot of people came to me and said, yeah, Matt, I should have been killed. I should have been. And a lot of people had similar stories, and maybe we all were killed, and this is a bizarro netherworld that is extremely similar to where we were. But see, here's how it relates. How does it relate to the C.S. Lewis thing, Matt? Because I'm kind of relating our situation and what we're going through now and what we've been going through over the last 5 years with the world breaking down into a clown show with what C.S. Lewis is saying here. All those that take the wrong path don't perish, but they have to be resuscitated. They have to be brought back to the right path. The spirit guides in the fiction part of the book saying, this person's here again, bitching. We've seen them before, bitching about the same old things. They can't let it go. So let's say that tree did kill me. And then from a perspective of my higher self or whatever your religion may be, here's Matt, but in the new netherworld, after his tree death that he doesn't remember, from his perspective, that tree was held up by a branch and he was fine. He got lucky. And then the world starts to break down around Matt, and he's still firing off the same set of excuses. See, we're actually getting beyond those excuses now, but say 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. Oh, it's the Illuminati. It's the secret societies doing it to us, and it's the governments. It's the money and the power system that stands behind in the shadows that you can't see. And from that perspective, and we're coming through this now. We are seeing it in a very general sense as the grand illusion that's just set up to distract, to continue to draw us in. But from the perspective of like a spirit guide in the C.S. Lewis book, if they were observing me in 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, it's like, well, they were put in that realm that's one less, but everything's broken down as to complete nonsense. In other words, it's created so the cartoon can be more pronounced, so the absurdity can be more pronounced. I've said many times this reality is it's a wake-up device as it exists now. But whoever was observing me, whatever your religion may be, higher self, saying, we created a clown show environment where everything's breaking down after he was, in fact, in the old reality, killed by the tree, and he's bitching and complaining about the same old things, just as these ghosts are from the spiritual guide perspectives in the C.S. Lewis book. The person, it's very petty in the book, saying, I see my husband over there. He was on the bus with me, and he did this to me, and he did that to me. And the spirit guide's like, it doesn't matter here. You have a whole eternity. Let's just move forward. And they don't let it go. And what have we? Do we let it go? It's always fight. It's the Illuminati, and it's all this. See, from their perspective, one of these fictional characters in the C.S. Lewis book, they'd be looking at us getting off the bus, bitching about the same old things in the truth community. And we're starting to come out of that now. Some of us are going, it doesn't matter. That there's no difference between a Kit Kat Dash and the Great Pyramid. It's all part of the grand illusion, great deception. We're seeing reality for what it's intending to do as a whole to us. So, but up until very recently, I could see these spiritual guides in the C.S. Lewis book. By the way, I don't think it's worth reading. Do not go out and buy this. We've covered everything there is to cover here. It's not very good, the back end. It's not. It's a mess. C.S. Lewis, sorry, buddy. It's a mess. But there's some interesting things to take away from it. So, yeah, Matt, whether he believes he died or not, this reality is a clown show reality down. He's still got a friend named Tony. His father still looks the same. He still lives in the same place. We mimic the reality, but see, this one has the dial turned to 10 in terms of its wake-up parameters. It's bordering. There's no other place to go. If these sons of bitches don't wake up in this clown show reality, they never will. And some of the spirit guides in The Great Divorce in the back end, like, here's this person getting off the bus again, complaining about their sister. If this person doesn't shape up now, there's nothing. They'll go to the abyss. There's nothing left of them that can be resuscitated. So, we are starting to use this clown show reality for what it's intended for. It is a wake-up tool for us. It is not so we organize pickup truck armies with signs and go protest and or always battle against the Illuminati. It's like it's a cartoon that's created here to make the Illuminati and all this. It's becoming ridiculous to all of us. And you still have a whole host of truth channels. Oh, the secret societies, the secret societies. Don't you say it's just part of the fiction of the whole reality? It's a joke. Matt, I knew he was on the side of the secret societies. If you can't see it by now, I can't explain it to you, honestly. Those that have been doing this, if you're new, okay. But those that have been doing this 10 plus years with me, and it's the same cast of characters, the same complaints, the same dark figures operating the shadows. It's just somebody waving it's just something waving a neon sign to get our attention. That's all it is. And the general theme from this book is accurate. If you're going to get on the bus, whether it be now in a transformation now or at the moment of death, then it is time to move on. Don't carry, in this case, and what we're talking about now, carrying the hell is carrying the old truther pursuits and the same cast of characters that we were told that are, it's the same police lineup we've done 100 times. And can't you see what I'm saying here? That the whole thing needs to be left behind in that way. I think the message that we're getting from the C.S. Lewis book is good for us. So stop spinning around in your grave, C.S. Lewis. I think we're reading between the lines, and we can use some of the lessons here to reinforce what we deep down think and know what we should be doing. You can just feel it, can't you? Is Truth Pursuits kind of about just moving on, or is it about going back to the same police line? Matt, I told you it was the reptilians and the Archons in the end, and these Illuminati, and let's go investigate the Rothschilds and everything. Glenn Beck presented all that, and here's all the the family tree of George Soros, and look at all these nonprofits that relate back to the Rockefellers, and oh, this relates to the Trilateral Commission, and this relates to the Council on Foreign Relations. And can't you see the reality in itself as a whole wants us following those sorts of breadcrumbs? It's very clear to me at this point. And I didn't know this is where the C.S. Lewis book would take us, but it did. So thanks, C.S. Lewis. Thanks, Ray. Thank you, son. I make American car parts for the working man because that's who I care about, and that's who I am. Thanks for listening.